3-round burst, 1 trigger pull. That is amazing. This is my Tokyo Marui next generation recoil shock MP5A5. And today we're gonna go tip to butt talking about my custom build and also answering the question, should you get one? But before that, we must prove that this is an airsoft toy and not real by plugging this Tamiya battery into the connector, putting on some iPro, proving that we're empty, nothing in the chamber, and there we go. So the MP5, it is a classic. Everyone knows it. It's the coolest submachine gun out there. Not a lot of modern submachine guns can beat this thing in terms of its performance. As for airsoft, doesn't really matter. It's an RC car in a shell. However, this particular model is very, very unique and very, very good. However, that doesn't mean it comes without its flaws. There are some glaring issues, and depending on the batch that you get, you may or may not face these issues like I have. So let this be your buyer beware. And for some context, I have used this thing for over a year now, maybe a year and a half, and it's been one of the most fun airsoft toys I've used. And I've changed the build a little bit since the last time I reviewed this thing, and I wanted to do another video on this to see if my thoughts have changed about this thing. So in Garand Thumb style, we are going to go tip to butt and go through each part, talking about what's good and what's bad. Then we're gonna talk about its gameplay viability and then give my final thoughts on this. So let's go tip to butt. So let's talk about the Muzzle Device. It is a proprietary muzzle device, a tri-lug, and it does not have a counterclockwise 14mm screw. So you can't put any Ace Tech tracer or whatever you want on the tip of this like you could with the high cycles or literally any other MP5. This particular one is actually one with the front post. So it's a whole unit. And that means you have to use the Tokyo Marui adapter that comes with the thing and the spacer that comes with the thing to put on a tracer unit. And I currently use the Tokyo Marui full auto tracer because it's perfectly flush with it, but you can use a blaster or any other kind of tracer. It'll just look weird because it won't fit the width of the adapter. So you might get a weird looking suppressor or you're gonna have to go for a wrapped look. So it easily just goes on. You just put it on like this and then you twist it like a regular tri-lug and pull out just a bit for it to be secure. And you're good to go. And you can see that is a long boy and it becomes just as long as a Mark 18, but it is goddamn cool. So the problem with this proprietary adapter is that for some reason, maybe over time, the plastic or whatever, or maybe I leaned it up against the wall or whatever, the recoil would actually cause this thing to shake. And then the adapter itself would start to lean downwards like this, very, very slightly. So that means either A, your BBs won't come out, or B, your BBs will shoot straight downward. Maybe the plastic wore down or something like that. But what I've done to remedy that is actually put a piece of electrical tape on the lugs to give it some shim so that it stays nice and locked, give it a good tug. And that way you're good to go and it's not gonna move. That's just one thing you have to worry about. I'm not sure if they fixed that in the new lots or whatever. So for the rest of this video, I'm gonna take this off because it's too long to fit in the camera frame. Okay, let's talk about the handguard now. Obviously, the original handguard of the MP5A5 is this triangle piece, which is really, really nice. It has a lot of battery space, especially if you use a 7.4 LiPo, like a tiny boy, like the one I use here, the GeForce Noir. I use this for all my AEGs. Easily fits in there, not a problem at all. If you do use a Mini S nickel metal hydride, it is quite hard to put in there. But what I like about this is that it doesn't creak. Hear that? No creak at all. They actually use good plastic, good polymer, but it's a triangle handguard. So if I put on the classic triangle handguard, it actually feels pretty good in the hand. No creaking, very solid. But as someone who does modern gripping, like C-clamping, or you want to put a foregrip or something like that on there, you don't have any of those options. And another thing is it doesn't have any rails, so you can't put a flashlight on here, you can't put a camera, or you can't put a foregrip or anything like that, but it does look cool, I guess. You can also use a flashlight handguard, which goes on quite nicely, does activate a flashlight like this, but it also means you cannot use a suppressor. So you're out of luck, you're gonna have to commit to it. But it does look cool. It looks like the Modern Warfare 2019 version. However, this one does have some creaking to it. So I don't use this one, I actually use my Magpul. So the Magpul can go on there really tightly, but it does fit and it doesn't break. And it becomes super tight for the battery. So you're gonna kind of have to stuff it in there, but you have to use this size battery, very small, the smallest LiPo you can find. Anything bigger than that, it's not gonna work. But this is my preferred choice so far because it's nice and light, it's not too expensive, and it can support rail mounts. But as you can see here on the left side, I do have a M-LOK section and a riser on top of that. The reason for that is to mount a selfie camera. I used to have a M-LOK foregrip under here to do a nice pull-in, but because of all the cameras that I mount on this thing now, I had no space, so I just do like a C-clamp now. So I'm kind of starting to like having a free handguard because there's no recoil in Airsoft. I can kind of grab where I need to and whatever the situation demands rather than committing to a particular grip. On top, we have a Midwest Industries replica M-LOK rail bar thing, and this thing is super essential for me because I need to put a camera on top of here, and it looks sleek because it keeps the front post on there. So that's perfect for me. Got a little Loctite, doesn't move, very, very solid. It also has a little section on there, so don't worry, you can rack the charging handle and slap it down, no problem. It's not gonna get in the way. Now, the best part about the MP5A5 is that this charging handle is a reinforced nylon and it does not break. I have slapped this thing all year, so it's super strong off the bat. So we actually have a 2-stage spring. So if I pull this down, you can kind of feel around this point that the spring actually stops. So you can see that there's a stoppage right here, which engages the strong spring, which would normally smack this thing into the receiver. But we can see that it kind of stops there and then it lightly goes. But if you look closely, it actually doesn't hit the receiver at all. It actually floats and stops right before it. And that's because there is a very, very subtle hydraulic-ish system in here that prevents it from smacking into the receivers. So whether or not you smash this thing with your fist, the nylon's gonna support that. And whether or not you just let it go with your thumb, it's not gonna slam into that receiver. And it's actually functional. So you can't actually shoot this thing when it's empty. So I've disassembled the MP5, looks kind of cursed right now, but with an empty magazine, if I fire, it won't shoot. So what I have to do is actually rack it and then it'll go. And when I'm shooting, have to rack the charging handle, put in a new magazine, and that's it, right? Let's say if I get a new magazine and I don't rack it, it's not gonna go. I actually have to slap it down and it'll go from there. So that's really, really realistic and cool. And that has to do with the way the hop is designed with the whole ETU system that goes inside the gearbox here. And that's great. And of course, if you don't wanna do that and you just wanna dry fire, 1, 2, 3, you'll see that there is a blue light inside now going off, and that means you can free fire. So that makes it the most realistic MP5 I have seen to date. Okay, so let's talk about the optics. So when I first got the MP5, I started with the Holosun 510C, and I liked this optic because it's nice and wide, has an EOTech reticle, also has a dot reticle, and it's a little bit lighter than the EOTech. But now you'll see is that I have a Unity riser on here, and I used to be against all kinds of risers, and I only got this for one reason, is because when I mount a camera on top of here, it becomes too high for a lower third co-witness optic to actually see over that. So I got a Unity riser, and then I got a lower third co-witness riser, and then I got the Holosun on top of that. So it's super tall. I think it's even higher than a Unity Giraffe, but in practice, this is a lot better for CQB as I don't have to crane my neck. And if you have pelters or whatever get in the way, it's just very easy to get a sight picture. You can go for the cheek weld if you go in, but it is a welcome addition, doesn't look too bad, and it looks great with the EOTech as well. So yeah, we're a riser gang now. Okay, so let's talk about the magazine really quickly. Comes out with a paddle release and also has that button that nobody uses. But the magazines, they are metal with a plastic top, and they can run 72 rounds as well as 30 rounds. If you open up this magazine, there's a little switch inside. You click that switch and it becomes a 30 round magazine, which is what I run them on. And this magazine can stand the test of time. I have thrown these mother fathers on every single terrain you can imagine. I've thrown them on concrete, I've thrown them on grass, rock, carpet, whatever, wood, and there's no cracks, no nothing. And they fit in the mag well really, really nicely. Some would say too nicely, and there hardly is any wobble. So one thing you have to watch out for with the MP5 is that when you first get one, this mag well is gonna be super tight. It's gonna be really hard to get magazines in there. there are two things you can do to make that easier for you. So one is to use them a lot, like crazy, and then over time, the metal and everything will kind of shave down and it'll become a lot easier to do it. As you can see, mine has a little bit of wobble now, but when I first got it, it had zero. Another thing you can do is get a little bit of silicone oil, spray the magazine as well as a little bit on the mag well, wipe around the walls, and it'll be super smooth like butter. Easy, no problem. Speaking of the mag well, there's also a sling point, which I've never actually used, but it does feel very sturdy, but I end up using this one over here. So if you want to have a sling on here, you can put a sling on there, put a little bungee cord, whatever, and you'll be good to go. So let's talk about the hop unit. It's a rotary style design with the Tokyo Marui magic, and it's great when it's not cold. In the cold, in the winter, whatever, this hop unit, or rather the nozzle, will be your greatest nightmare. This cannot feed your BBs properly in the cold. Whether you're outside in an air-conditioned room, you will start to see problems with feeding. It won't feed your BBs half the time. You'll shoot full auto, it just won't. It just won't. So the rumor is that because Tokyo Marui wanted to get a super tight air seal for the MP5, they made that nozzle super tight, and they didn't account for the cold weather, which made it even tighter, and it would shrink. And basically it can't feed your BB. So what happens is you get misfeeds and it doesn't go. So what you have to do is actually get a hair dryer and hair dry the hop unit and make sure it's nice and warm and expanded for this to actually shoot. And that's not good. And that only lasts temporarily, right? So not a fun time, and is one of the glaring issues of this thing. And this apparently was fixed in the second lot, as well as the MP5 SD6. But yeah, if you're a first batch user like me and you're having issues with this, I think Firefly does make a custom nozzle that alleviates that problem, or you have to send it to Marui to fix and replace, which is what I'm going to do after this video. But yeah, buyer beware. If you have a first lot MP5A5 next generation recoil shock and you find that your airsoft toy is not shooting in your cold climate, that's probably why. But the best part of it is the gearbox. Proprietary, but it has the new M system MAGFET on it. I know that's old tech, but for Marui, that's new, and it's absolutely great. And let's demonstrate the MP5's response. So it does have 3 firing modes. It has semi-automatic, 3-round burst, and full auto. So if I pull this trigger, oh, haha, I'm gonna put on Karauchi mode, dry fire mode. So you can see here, if I pull this trigger, ghost that trigger, right there, there's actually a micro switch inside. So it's very, very nice and responsive. The cool part is if you spam the trigger and you slap it, that's basically as good as you're gonna get. But if you learn the wall, look how good that is. And that's recoil as well. And it's actually pulling a weight along the piston to give it that recoil. Really, really great. Once you master that trigger and kind of just learn to not slap it, it's not super snappy hair trigger, but out of the box, in normal usage, it's really, really responsive, really, really great, and it doesn't lock up because it's an ETU. So if we go to 3-round burst, 1 trigger pull, 3. Now if I spam it, see, and I learned that wall, it's basically full auto, but controlled. So that is amazing. And of course, full auto, if I do a quick trigger pull, semi, control that, and that is your full auto. Really, really great. In terms of the FPS, it shoots around 90 to 92, so it's quite fast, even for indoor. So that in combination with the Marui hop rubber and the barrel, when it's actually working, it's actually very, very precise. Lilacs does make an EG barrel for it, a tight bore. And you could also use an AEP Prometheus bucking on there, and you can make this thing a beamer, which is what I'm probably gonna end up doing. And that's it. You don't need to upgrade anything else. No gear sets, no piston, no nothing. Note that if you want to use this for CQB, it's fine, bro. Like 300 FPS or whatever is good. It's like, just move. Like, you don't have to beam people across the map. Just move, go closer. Go closer to the guy, go flank him. Why do you have to beam him across the map? That's not CQB. You know, you gotta get up and personal. The thing is, this thing was made for Japan, right? And Japan's engagement distances for CQB on average is less than 10 meters. So you're gonna be point blank with someone. So the FPS doesn't really matter. It just depends on the field. If I go to Tenku or a longer range field, you just move. Like, okay, last thing about this MP5 is the stock. So the stock is your regular telescoping stock that everyone knows. The cool thing about it is that it's metal and it easily slides in and out to a single position, in and out, that's it. So what's nice about it is that if you want to transport it, easily done. And of course, when you pull it out, it does go probably like position 3 or 2 of an M4 stock. I'm 6 feet tall, so it doesn't quite go on my shoulder, but this is fine. It's supposed to be an SMG anyway, right? There is only one setting for it, but it's fine for most people. So one thing you can do is learning how to collapse the stock on the fly so that you can be more compact. There is no recoil, so it's not gonna be flying up on you. So you can just kind of take advantage of everything, put it on your chin. You can even make it smaller on the fly, QD, and make it even smaller like an MP5K. Not quite like an MP5K, but you know what I mean. But there is one small issue with this, is that the retaining pin, because of the recoil and because of that weight slamming into the receiver, this retaining pin will lose its retention. And you see here that I have some Teflon tape holding it in because it is super loose and it will fall out if I forget about it. So just be aware of that. There are some pins that have actual locks and screws on them, like the ones that come with the Magpul. You could also put that on there. The cool part too is that if you remove this pin, you can easily put on another stock. And I'm not gonna show you how to do that because YouTube will demonetize me. But basically you can put an A4, the Masada stock. That's Lilacs, I think, has a Picatinny rail one, so you can put a buffer tube, whatever, the MCX stock, whatever you want on there. And that is an option for you now, 1.5 years later. But for me, I keep it like this for now. Keeps it classic, keeps it compact, really good for transport. Okay, so let's talk about gameplay viability. This thing out of the box, performance-wise, is absolute meta out of the box. It has an ETU, no lockups, it has recoil, which is really cool. It has really, really good response in all 3 modes of fire. It's compact, it's collapsible on the fly. It has a lot of QD on the fly. So you can change the strategy and adapt to any situation at any time with the MP5. However, its ergonomics beseech thee. It's a toy that's based on a submachine gun that was made in the Cold War era. So just like the Type 89, it wasn't designed with Picatinny in mind and all that. In fact, it doesn't come with any of these rails when you first get it. It comes with nothing. You don't have any options for flashlights. You don't have any options for foregrips or anything. So what you have to do is spend a little bit more money just making this thing modernized. So as you can see here, I've done a lot of external work to make it viable for my needs. And my needs are a little bit special because I got cameras on here. But even if you want a PEC box or a flashlight, you gotta at least get a new handguard. That's kind of the downside of the MP5 when it comes to its ergonomics. Another one is its reload. The reload is a 4-stage reload. Just to get you back into the fight, maybe what, a 3-5 second reload, depending on how well you're trained. I've done this a million times, so I can do it pretty fast. But for someone who's kind of new to it, fumble with this. Where's my magazine? I can't get it in. Okay. Oh, I forgot to rack it. Okay, that's like what, 7 seconds? And that can mean life or death of your airsoft life. You can make it efficient if you want to. And Tokyo Marui has thought of that as well. If you go Karauchi mode, 1, 2, 3, you see the blue light, you can dry fire it. So that means you don't even have to do any of that. Right, so you can do that, but you're sacrificing a little bit of your realism. The whole point of the MP5 is to slap the thing, so I don't know why you would do that. Also, when it comes to slapping takes a lot more motion. Slapping also doesn't account for optics. So what you're gonna actually end up doing is thumbing it. So the HK thumb. But other than that, this thing is absolute fire if you don't have a first batch. Guys, what do you think of the MP5A5 Recoil Shock by Tokyo Marui? Would you get one? Is it overrated? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you want to see more videos about airsoft in Japan, go ahead and click this video right here.